and welcome everyone. This is exciting, isn't it,
Yes,
Greta?
hello. Yes, I'm super excited. I'm so glad I get to present with you again. I miss you already. I miss Isti, but we're here.
Yeah, so we did this session during ISTE. It was I'm going to get it wrong, critical thinking and creative and critical
Ha-
thinking.
it was a higher order critical and creative thinking playground.
Yes.
There we
And
go.
our title is Creative and Critical Thinking through PBL. That's it. Okay. So we presented together at ISTE and we had such a blast presenting that we now were like, we've got to share this with people who were not at ISTE. And we missed all of you guys who are not able to attend at ISTE. And plus at ISTE, there's so much going on. So you might have got tangled into something else during this presentation time. So we are so excited to share how we have empowered creativity and critical thinking through PBL. So my name is Stephanie Howe, and I'm an instructional tech coach in Ohio. And then Greta is.
Okay, I'm in Argentina. I'm a sixth grade English teacher. I'm also a critical thinking online instructor at Belgrano Day School here in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Yeah, and you're like, how did Ohio and Argentina connect, right?
Ah,
Like how does that happen? Well, that happens through Twitter, right? And
yes.
that happens through reaching out and building that personal learning network. Um, so that's how that happens.
Exactly. So you'd better check Twitter, start connecting with people. It has totally changed me as a person and as an educator. So I always say Twitter is the place.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get started in talking about PBL. And I just put in the chat a Google form for you to fill out. If you are interested in our session resources, we'll send them out about 24 hours. I know people are watching the recording, so it will come at least within a day of you watching the recording because I get a nice little notification that says, hey, send the resources. You'll also get the other ISTE resources that we had at ISTE. So make sure you sign up and put in your information. And then for conference, just pick ISTE 2020 because ISTE's not over. We are still celebrating ISTE 2022. So just pick that one. But here we go with some PBL. So you want to talk about the gold standard of PBL, Greta?
Okay. So first thing, as I said, I'm an English teacher. So we do PBL at my school. Our goal is to help our students develop their English skills, speaking, listening, writing, reading, but also my school has this mission of teaching kids to learn how to learn. So critical thinking is deeply embedded in our program. And then we try to connect their learning with real life context. So PBL is like the perfect match. We follow the gold standard PBL, that is, it has several steps. It starts with a challenging problem or question. Sometimes it can be connected to the SDGs, so we can get kids involved in real life problems and take PBL, to us like forward so that they can take action. And then, well, as we have this question, we need to inquire. We need them to get into research, but we also need to have the authenticity so that, this inquiry, these problems are connected to themselves and like the project speaks to themselves. And then we focus on a lot of student voice and choice. We get kids to choose how they are going to show their learning, to share their voice, because this brings ownership. And I don't know, Steph, if you want to go on.
Yeah, and I think just with PBL in general, like students are invested. Students are excited to learn, and it is a lot. It's a big project, But when I think back to when I was in school, I think back to the projects. I don't remember much of the content that I learned, but I do remember like one of my teachers, sixth grade, which is crazy, sixth grade, going back to that grade level. We had a project and we had $1 million. And we were able to spend that $1 million however we wanted, but we could only have 1 penny left over. We had to spend it all. And I don't know why that project sticks out to me, but thinking back with project-based learning or problem-based learning, I go back to sixth grade, that project, and it stretched my thinking. It was different. It wasn't the same sit there, learn material. I was invested in my learning. So that's where PBL kind of sits home with me is when you ask people about their schooling, it's usually some type of project that they bring up. Which brings us to backwards design. So with backwards design, this is where you as the teacher, it kind of can be tricky because you're thinking about your whole unit. You're thinking about what do I expect these students to learn? What do I want them to understand? How do I want them to show what they've learned through evidence? And then how and when do I want them to be finished, right? And so usually it's me. I pull up my Google Calendar. Greta, do you use a paper calendar or you Google?
Google.
Google. Okay, so some people are paper, and that's okay. You grab your paper calendar and you look at the dates. You figure out how long this project might be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. Maybe it's ongoing and the students are working on it like a genius type of hour. But that is kind of the first step is that backwards design. And again, it's a lot of upfront work. So when you are doing PBL, all of your work is upfront. But what is nice is throughout the project, you don't have to take much home, right? Like all of the feedback that I do, I think Greta's the same way, is done in class. I don't really take a whole lot of projects home to grade. Like the students usually present it. And so everything I just do is in class. And so it makes my week a lot more manageable for my family. They get to see me instead of hide in a room, lesson planning every single day. But it is a little bit more upfront, that planning. All right, you want to talk about the challenging problems that we could face?
Okay, so as we mentioned, we need to start, even though we plan backwards and we want to know what we expect our kids to know, but the end of the project, we kick off the project with a challenging problem or question, an issue we want them to get involved. So we work a lot on open-ending questions. Yes, we help them develop, like we need to get them curious and ready to and eager to start inquiring and learning. So here is, I think, the key, how we trigger the project.
Yeah, I love that word trigger because if it's just a closed-ended question or yes or no, your students won't go very far in that project. And so it's really important to demonstrate and kind of talk about what is easy to Google and what is something that might use a little bit more critical thinking. So over here are just some examples that some teachers have used in the past, maybe when it comes to solving different things. Again, you're using those like how, why, type of questions. And here are some other questions that can kind of help you and your students create and develop that question. So, for example, how can I or we, and you can kind of pick who, or how can an organization, how can teenagers, whatever you want that focus, that who is that audience to do? Do you want to build, make, design, plan? And then after that, what's it for? Is it for a school, a classroom? Is it a global audience or are you staying local? And that's what's exciting for some of these projects is it could be a local project where you are teaming up with a community member or community partner, or it could be across the world, right? So that is kind of the fun piece about developing some of these questions. And so with that, group work, right? Group work's hard, don't you think, Greta?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
But I love group work. There are so many techniques and so many things you can do to make group work really happen in the classroom, and getting all the kids involved, So there's lots of learning there to do. So I think we need to think carefully how we plan our groups, what roles we give to the kids so that it becomes meaningful.
Yeah, and I liked what you said about like making group work not personal, but purposeful. That's the word. And a lot of times I just like, oh, kids are just gonna know how to work in groups, right? Like it's just naturally gonna flow. They're just gonna pick their jobs. No, no, that doesn't work. So you want to have something in place for your students when they are starting out with PBL. So here's an example, and we have a couple other examples. And actually, Tara just joined too. She kind of helped me make something or inspired me to make something just this week. Like I'm constantly, improving and thinking about how to make group work better. So I'm going to share some of those ideas too. Greta probably was like, what? She's sharing more.
No, I love it. I'm ready to learn.
Yeah. But with that, like, what's the name? What's the project name? How much time do you think this is going to take? What's the standard or the question, the essential question that's being covered? And then students can kind of have signatures to say, like, yes, I'm on board, with this group project. Here are some examples that I'm going to show real quickly that are kind of brand new, like a day old. Don't you just love it?
You're amazing. That's what I love. Like I keep learning.
So group work's hard. I mean, I can't stress that enough. Like the amount of teachers that give up on group work because it is just hard. Like, and so right here is a 21-day plan that I've kind of worked through, and Tara was kind of helping me think through this. And what happens is you just kind of click. So before you might do a PBL project, it might be helpful for you to get your students used to working in groups. So again, rather than just saying, here's your project, go, you might want to build them up. And so August, we start back. Greta does not. I think it's is it mid-year for you, right?
Yes.
Yeah, mid-year.
Winter break. I'm going back to school on Monday after winter break.
Yeah, it's weird, winter break. Like, no, it shouldn't be winter break. Okay, so you just find whatever time would work for you, but this is probably good at the beginning of a school year. And each day has a different task, and it should be pretty easy to implement this throughout anything that you're using. And of course, I found this and adapted it because I like to steal resources. So like the first thing is interview a partner. So they're just interviewing a partner, and then they're going to share it with the class. And there's links and resources that I've had that you could maybe use for that task. Maybe here, when prompted, you just check on your partner. Is their partner on task or are they not? And so again, building students up to be able to work in groups later will really help your students prepare for PBL. Another thing is this helping curriculum. Asking for help is hard. I struggle with this, right, Greta?
Me too.
And so when you're asking for help, maybe you're going through and you're identifying the problem, did you offer help? Maybe it is did you ask for help? Did you even accept help? And so getting our students to decline help respectfully and just teaching them how to receive and say, yes, I do need help, and speaking up is really important because me as an adult, I struggle with asking for help. I'm such like I'll just do it myself type of person. But that collaboration piece can be really, really good. And I'm slowly giving up control. So like, for example, Greta, like we're doing a presentation together. So we're able to collaborate and share like, oh, I didn't think about doing it that way. Or that's a really good idea. Or I'm struggling with this. And she can say, oh, I have this resource that really helps my students. So again, asking for help can allow that collaboration to just grow even more. So again, it just kind of goes through again some different ideas, talking about noise level, discussion organizers. There are so many different ideas on this 20-day plan or 21-day plan. I forgot I added group jobs. And you can go in and you're able to kind of do this with your students to get them ready for PBL and working with a collaborative group. Yeah.
I love it. I will steal it.
know. Well, I mean, I stole it from someone else, but I added, I was like, I'm more of like, give me the idea and I can add more task and stuff to it. But it's such a struggle. And so we've got to build students up for this task. Another thing that we were kind of working on was this team tasking. So when you're creating groups, you have an upcoming task. So you might want to lay down everything the students need to do for that PBL project. And then once you have it all laid down, did they complete it? They check the box. There's also owners. So they're going to say who is the leader. Doesn't mean they're doing the whole part of that project. It might just mean they are delegating different tasks to different students. Or it might mean that they are going to create that graphic or they are going to do this. And what they do is they have I'm working on it. I'm done with that part. I'm stuck. And if a student sees that they're stuck, maybe they can team up and help that other student get unstuck. And they're able to work together. And over here, I can say, this is going to take me about an hour. This is going to be done in 2 days. Students are able to kind of create that timeline so other students know what's going on during that class time. Okay, those are
I
my
love it.
things.
I will share. I don't have a copy to share, but we use Jamboard. So
Yeah.
we have like what they need to do, like the whole success criteria, and kids move the sticky notes throughout the Jamboard, like a Kanban sort of board. I will send it over so we can share it too.
Yes, yes. And we will add all of these to the resource deck that you'll get soon. Okay, so now grouping based on abilities. And I love how you group your students. So I want you to share how you do this in your classroom.
Okay, this has helped a lot, especially to move kids from this, I want to work with my friend, and this issue that I hate, like when kids start grouping themselves and there's always somebody who's left out. And I really don't like that. So this is amazing. We give, like, we have the paper version that is a black and white, or if not, the digital version that is done on Google Slides. We have both templates to share, but basically both of them work the same. One is done like digitally and the other one, as I said, on paper. So we give the kids a copy, and as you see, they have to put a nickname. And the nickname cannot be connected to their names. Like, for example, if we are doing a project connected, as we did with SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, their nickname had to be connected with that, like salty water, fresh water, something like that. And then they have to check their skills and traits. For example, I'm good at taking the lead, I'm good at planning, organizing. So they need to check what they are good at, and also connected to their personality. I'm ambitious, I'm intentional, I'm independent. And then we stick all of those around the classroom. And this is why it's important that they keep a nickname. We don't want them to choose a friend. We want them to choose what they need for the group. So we choose 5 team leaders. They can be anybody. Sometimes it's just random names, and they need to pick, based on what they are good at and based on their personality, what they think will match or make a good fit to work together in groups. So if I'm good at taking the lead, but I'm not good at designing, I need somebody who's good at designing for my project. So they walk around, they see all these papers, and they start picking who their team members are going to be. And then at the end, they find out who their teammates are. At the beginning, kids were like, what are we doing this? I want to work with my friends. But as they started doing it, they realized how much better they worked, and they want to work this way. At the beginning of the year, I asked them to give me they sent me privately 3 people they would like to work with, and I made sure before we started doing this, I would group them with at least one of them. I do this because I get a lot of information from them, like if somebody is being left out or who gets on well with whom, who's a popular one. But at the beginning, they just wanted to work like that. And then as we started using this, they don't want to go back to working with their friends. They enjoy working this way. And that's when we moved to the digital one. We have all the slides on one document. It works the same. They just have to highlight. And I don't give them like access to the document so they can see who they are. I just share like anybody with a link permit. So we get those funny nicknames and we don't know who is behind what's the slide. And this way we still can keep this fun thing of we don't know who it is, which is fun, but it's also super important in this setting.
Yeah, I really love this because it's making students work with someone that might be their weakness. And like for me, I might pick a friend, but we might be very similar in qualities. And so that friend's not really going to help me throughout the project. They might just be fun to work with. But now I'm able to, for example, my lead might be taking the lead. And so if that is the case, I can really lead my group with that strength. And that's amazing that you're using those qualities. And this is something that I am going to steal from you.
Okay, all yours.
So again, grouping based on abilities is that next step. And feel free to kind of do this. I've also seen different people group based on personality tests.
I was thinking about your Enneagram test
Yeah.
that you shared last weekend. I think it could be we get to explore the different types, who we are, like when I did it and I read more about my type, it helped me a lot discover lots of things about myself. So why don't get kids involved with this, as a social emotional learning activity. And then we come, a step further and group them based on their Enneagram types.
Yeah, I think you definitely could, especially for students that might not be as self-aware of like, oh, I'm not a leader. And it's like, no, you are a leader, or I am not a planner, or whatever the skill is. Like there are some students that might not be able to identify those qualities or skills, I think.
Yes,
It's a hard thing to do.
That's why at the beginning we made the groups like based on, I don't know, I picked the groups, but I kept friends together. And as I gave them feedback on their performance, I made sure I would explore all these skills and these qualities. I teach English, so for me it was a great vocabulary teaching moment. So I made sure that they were familiar with them, but still it's not easy, to what it means, but in sixth grade, it's not that easy to identify. It's not easy for adults sometimes.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but I definitely think you could either do this, the personality test, and as you get to know your students, you're able to create those probably better groups as well. And do you change your groups from project to project or leave them pretty consistently?
no, I change them. They ask for change. Sometimes we do game-based learning throughout the project. So maybe they worked on really well. So I said, okay, or especially those who win. So they want to keep working together, maybe like 2 projects, but I like change.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so then we're going to kind of, again, just talk about that backwards design. Here's our calendar. This is this is the project end date, the 20th. And so we're going to look back and say, okay, what do the kids need to do? And this is a good project to do with students. That way you're working on some of those executive functioning skills, such as like time management. And students are learning about like planning and prioritizing what needs to happen first, what needs to happen second, to get to that end product. So again, this can be a life skill that you're able to walk through with the students and help them kind of plan. Sometimes I like to do the first one together so that way they can kind of see and hear the modeling out loud. But then by maybe the third project, they might do it by themselves and get a teacher check. I usually check it before they just go because I'm a control freak, but also I think we need that feedback as well.
I agree.
All right, so inquiry. So this is now the next step of your PBL process is getting students to kind of think about what they're researching and taking that question that we talked about at the beginning, and now they're really exploring that question and they're researching it. So with that, there's a couple different ways that you can do this, and we're going to talk through all of them. And so you might put the question here, resources I'm using to answer the question, what have I learned? And then do they have any other questions based on what they learned from that research? So this is a way that students could kind of do this with their group. They could also kind of do like a KWL chart where they're kind of thinking about like, what do I want to know? What do I know about this topic? And then how am I going to learn it? And then students could also maybe even do like a research log where they put their project, their source, and any notes that they find out about that project. And they can duplicate these slides as needed. But again, you're starting to get them to think about their project and seeing all of that research come alive. This is another example where the group will maybe use like a Google slide. It's just the way to organize it. And what I had a teacher do is she had all of her groups here, and then she linked everything so she could find their research. She could find different meeting notes. She can find everything in one spot. But this was kind of her tracker to keep track of all of her individual student, like all of the group projects, because it can get a lot to keep organized. So she was just able to say like team one or whatever the group name was. She was able to link their slides, put their meeting dates, put the notes in, and was able to kind of keep adding as the project began, and she needed to have those teacher checks. And then Greta does something really cool as well.
Okay, so as they do research, it's important to teach them that not all the resources we find are credible. So I prepared this lesson on digital citizenship, so they learn to evaluate different sources. So it's, I don't know if you want to scroll. It starts with a video that talks about like everything we see online is real. Then we have another video that teach them how to evaluate sources. So usually after this video, we debate a lot, especially for my students. The idea of bias was hard to understand at the beginning. So we had like a deep conversation about that. And then there's a Kahoot. It's linked there in case you want to use it. And then we explore all the different like author, purpose. I don't know if you can scroll down a little there. Bias, credibility. So we explore what each of these mean. And then I shared like the checklist. It's there. So they have a copy of that. We have it in our LMS, but not that one, but don't worry, leave it. They have like one that summarizes what author, purpose, bias, credibility mean. And then together we explored some resources. I showed them, I modeled how to do it. There you have all those examples that are already checked. And then, yes, I asked them to start using the checklist, like now it's your turn. So they have copies of the checklist and they had to submit the different slides with their sources. I asked them to do it like the first time, okay, at least 2 of your resources. Now, as they find it easier, they check all of them because it's something that I think it's super important.
Yeah, and I just love how there's so many different ways to do it, right? And you might have a different way or you might find a different way, and that's okay. Like that's what's so great about PBL and kind of your classroom is you can kind of decide what way do you want your students to research. One thing, again, this has come after ISTE with working with one of our teachers, Megan Fernie. She has like a US president project that she's going to be doing with her students. And at first I was like, oh, I should lay out all the slides for them. And then I was like, I should not be doing that for them. Like they need to, you know, like they need to take over and do that. Like I'm doing more work than them right now. Um, and so we used a Edu protocol, which if you're not familiar with Edu protocols, you need to be. There are amazing books out there. I think they're up to 5, right? Like, is that, yeah, I think 5.
Yes. And I
So
think they were like, if you wanted the Kindle copy, they were on sale these days, like $3.99 each. I don't know if it's still on, but you
yeah.
should check because I think they are really valuable.
Yeah, and sometimes they do a lot of those slides too. So right here is like kind of guided research for some of the students that might need it. But again, I just took the 8 parts protocol and I just have them searching for their president and then things about their president. And I kind of made it more guided. But again, as you get going, you can make it less guided and the students are able to kind of research what they need to research. But at first, you might need to model for them really strongly.
Yes.
So I thought that was kind of a fun idea of using 8 parts with research.
Yes, I will try it.
Yeah, we're gonna see how it goes.
I really like it.
Yeah.
We are doing a project now on legacy, like so, we are focusing on ancient Greece. So lots of research opportunities there.
Yeah, and I liked what Ruth just put in the chat.
Yes.
Small projects. I agree. Start small and get big.
Yes.
um,
Exactly.
and I think your
Sometimes,
students. Oh, go
sorry.
ahead. Um,
No, that sometimes starting small like helps you develop, like focus on a skill a lot more, and then as you grow bigger, it's easier to get them work like together. And
yeah, I definitely think starting small is a good idea. So that's okay. And I think your students will find success too along the way because they'll meet their deadlines a lot faster than maybe a month project or 2-month project or 3-week project or whatever it is. Yeah, PBL with thin slides. I'm interested to
oh
hear this idea.
yes, we will share thin slides in a bit. No.
Yep, right here. We are ready. So now it's like time to get your students to think about their learning and making it kind of visible. So one thing that I like to use during this part of the project is the 3 whys. So why might this topic matter to me? Why might it matter to maybe the community or local family or the city, the nation? And then why might it matter to someone overseas or globally? And again, it's just kind of getting the students to realize the why behind the project. And then we've got thin slides, and I used to think, and now I think.
Yes. So what I like about I used to think, now I think, is that it challenges their thinking, their beliefs. Sometimes when you start a project, they like, okay, I already know this, and as they begin to research, they realize that uh, they have a lot more information now as they build knowledge. So I used to think, now I think it's a wonderful piece to work on. Again, I like to give my students voice and choice, especially when we are reflecting. I want them to focus on the reflection. So they get to share, like I used to think how I think, like on a video or writing. So that's why I give them a slide so that they can choose how they are going to share their thinking.
And then,
The thin slides. And
yeah.
thin slides, okay, thin slides, I think is such a wonderful, I think it's my favorite edu protocol because it has so many possibilities. What I like here is an example of how we used it to connect learning throughout the project, but it can be used to trigger a discussion. It can be used as an exit ticket at the end. So there's really lots of possibilities. Basically, we get to give the whole set of slides to the class. Each kid picks one, and they have 5 minutes to come up with a phrase. It can be a word, like if you're beginning to use a edu protocol, maybe it's good to start with just one word. But in this case, I asked my kids to connect we were reading The One and Only Ivan, so they had to connect their feelings on how animals were treated in the story. So I asked them to come up with a phrase, to look for an image, and they had to share it in one slide. So after I used Gold EDU timers, after the 5 minutes, I stopped, like I hit slideshow or present, and they cannot edit anymore. That time is over, and it's sharing time. So each kid has to share their learning, have to share their phrase, the image, explain why. So we do this as a whole class. So this usually ends in deeper discussions. And as we reflect on what they've been learning on their research and how they connect it to their thoughts, it's like it helps them, dig deeper into their thinking.
Yeah, and I love that trick with the slideshow because students will try to keep editing, and what is on their slide at the end of the time is what goes live. So that is really fun, and I loved what you said about the conversations go deeper. Even though it's just one phrase or it's just one word, it's the conversations that take place when they have to present. And that's
Yes.
what I love about thin slides. And what I would suggest too with thin slides is if you want to use this in PBL, do it before PBL. Do it with back to school or back from winter break.
I'm doing that on Monday.
Yeah, like what did you do over break? What's your favorite food? Something that's pretty easy. And then like the students, like for example, tacos are my favorite food. So my one word might be crunchy. I might find an image of a fun taco. And then I did my one slide. And then when I'm talking to the kid, like students, I can explain that slide and they start to realize that protocol. And so when it comes to PBL, it'll be familiar to them and they'll be able to just do it. And they'll be more comfortable to share out loud those responses.
Yes.
Yeah, so multiple uses for thin slides, which is amazing.
Yes. And again, as Steph said, starting slow. So because thin slides can be tricky. They look simple, but they are not.
Yeah. And yeah, Ruth, thin slides make students think really fast, right? And get right to work. That timer helps. And when you hit slideshow, they're going to learn that 5 minutes, you mean 5 minutes. You don't mean 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Or you don't mean that they can keep editing when you hit slideshow, because I love doing it the first time. And the kid's like, that's not my slide. And I'm like, it was at the 5-minute mark.
They do that.
Yeah. And then they're like, oh. And I go, you have to share what it was done at the 5-minute mark, not the 5:01 mark, the 5-minute mark. And they just learn that, okay, next time I have to have all my stuff done in the 5-minute mark instead of after the time.
The first time I did it, they were like, Greta, can you hit refresh? No, I can't. They thought I didn't know that they would update their slides. But yes, it's important. Then they get it.
Yeah, so do it with something fun first, just so they understand that 5 minutes means 5 minutes. But you can have those fun conversations as well with your students. Yeah, and Patricia says that she loves thin slides. They're super easy to use and understand. And I totally, totally agree with you, Patricia.
Yes. Hi, Pato.
And so now we're talking about student voice and choice. And so some examples of this is getting students to work in groups, having some type of formative assessments during the process, having your research and those sources. They're able to choose some of that, picking experts to speak with, their presentation format. Usually I don't give them, you have to do a Google slide. Students get to choose how they're going to present their information, and then they're going to focus on their driving question. So Greta uses a roadmap.
I learned roadmaps thanks to Steph and Gold EDU. I totally stole that template from you. You should know.
It's all good. It's all good. I think I stole this from Amanda Sanderfall, so we're all good.
So that's a roadmap we used for Leave No One Behind. It was a project connected to clean water and sanitation. We gave them like each step they had to do Some of them are linked to the slide, others were linked to our LMS, so that they could work on their own, follow each step. And as you see, well, we talking about boys and toys, they get to choose what they are going to create, how they are going to show their learning. I think this is key because it makes them like feel like they own the project, is theirs, and it's also key for helping develop their creativity. So I like to give them choice all the time. I think it makes, it's their learning. Like if I am testing them on reading, okay, I managed to find a way that they can share their learning the way they want, but I first see that I'm assessing the learning skill I'm focused in, but they always get choice.
Yeah, so this roadmap is just really helpful for students to kind of follow along. And
those are your 3 whys.
yeah, there's the 3 whys, and it just makes it clear for students the path that they need to follow.
Yes, and also as they are focused on their tasks, it gives, I don't know, it reduces our teaching talking time a lot. They know what they have to do, so it gives us time, to walk around, to have more meetings with them, and give them feedback, like constant ongoing feedback. So I think this kind of roadmap is wonderful.
Yeah, I agree. And students could even maybe make their own roadmaps as you get going. So rather than maybe the teacher creating them, they move their little tiles to the order that they think tasks need to be completed. And then maybe you can have a conversation with them. Again, working on those executive functioning skills of just saying, like, you need to do this task before you do that task. And having that conversation with students could be helpful as well. So again, that project contract is really important when the students are working, because they're going to have a lot of voice and choice. So they've got to be able to work with a group, and you've got to keep them accountable to that. And so now reflection. Reflection can be fun, I think, but also it's sometimes difficult. You want to keep it constant and ongoing. So when you're doing like a project, just constantly checking in with students. Okay, what are the next steps? What are you doing during this time period? What have you accomplished? And just asking them those questions throughout the project can be really meaningful for students. Formative checks where you're formatively kind of seeing, okay, what have you done so far? Where are you at? One of the strategies from the 21-day group work plan was every student writes in a different color marker. So one student might be blue, one student might be green, and you can kind of see the like, is every student really working in that group? So I thought that was kind of a good idea. Like maybe I have my students do like a quick brainstorm and they all write in a different color, and I can see, okay, which is everybody collaborating and working together. And then just having different checkpoints. So this could be another project management log where students have their task, who's responsible, that due date, and then their status, and then they're done. And you're able to check those soft deadlines throughout, and then making sure that they're really ready to meet that hard deadline at the end of that project. And then giving feedback is really important as well. That self-reflection feedback, peer-to-peer, and teacher. But you've got to teach your kids how to give feedback, because if you don't, they could be really mean or very general. And so it's really important to walk through, okay, how do we improve just saying that's good or that's really bad? What's really bad about it? And how do we word it to give them some success in that feedback? Like, this would be really funny if you moved the punchline just a second before. Or this would be great if you ended right here instead of dragging out that part of the project. So really going over with the students that kind of feedback and how to give feedback is really key during this portion as well. So the time capsule, this is amazing.
Okay, this is something that we do it at the very beginning of the school year. It's part of, getting to know my students, and we give them all these slides where, we do the one word, we ask them to think 3 goals they have for the school year. They talk about their favorites, and then we come to the glows and grows, which is like my favorite thing to do. It's a reflection piece. Glows are like the things they are good at, the things they are proud of. And then we have the grows, which are the things they would like to improve or what they would like to get better at. So we ask them to reflect on their glows and grows at the very beginning. And then again, okay, we lock these slides. I remove access to them. They cannot see them again. We open the time capsule back at the end of the year. But throughout the whole year, after each project, we do glows and grows again. So it's, first of all, it's a whole class discussion, because I also like to help them with the language part. And as the year goes by, their reflections start getting like deeper and deeper. So we keep a record of all their different glows and grows. So at the end of the year, we open the time capsule, they go back to who they were at the very beginning, and they get to see their whole process throughout. And of course, we have the final glows and grows. We finish the year with a project that is called Journey into Self-Discovery. So they build a portfolio. So this is like so important, because it's like kind of the research part of that project for them.
Yeah, I love this time capsule idea and how you take away the access. It's like it's locked.
I mean,
the kids remember that they filled it out.
Sorry?
Like the kids are they like, oh yeah, I did fill that out. Like when you give them
but
back.
They sometimes they get really surprised, especially they write a letter to their future self. So they love going through that. Mm-hmm. I do go back to their one word. I usually, my one word this year was dare. So I share like how this is impacting on me. So I get them to, reflect on their one word throughout the year. But I think that is the only thing I go back to, because I want them to be like real, like a surprise, to see how they've changed or not.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So the next thing is that reflection piece. So when it comes to reflection, one of my favorite things that Greta does is a rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, I love that one.
I love it. Okay. So what is rock, paper, scissors?
Okay, rock, paper, scissors can be done. I use it a lot when reading A Long Walk to Water, but it can be done with anything, like at the end as an exit ticket, or when they are doing research at the end of their research. Rock is like, what was the hardest part or the most upsetting part? Paper, what they think it's so important, they want to take down notes of and keep it, like, and remember it forever. And scissors is, okay, what do you want to cut out? Usually with books, it's easier to find the scissors. But again, here they have absolute choice. If they want to do a video, if they want to do a poster. And this is what I love about my students this year. They are big Canva fans. So they come up with these amazing presentations. Like, I prepare the slides and they go to Canva, but it doesn't matter. So they came up with these presentations, and I loved it because, for example, for the rock part, they use this celebrity, The Rock. So you need to click on The Rock. So I love it because they are reflecting, but they are also, developing their digital literacy. So they come up with memes and stuff for me to check when I'm looking at their reflections, and they are so proud of their work. I love them.
Yeah, this is such a great activity for students to complete and just reflect. That I use it outside of PBL too.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what's great about PBL, is you can steal these for different activities as well. Yeah. And so this tabletop Twitter, this tabletop Twitter, it was funny because I originally posted this, and Greta now uses it in her PBL. I just use it at the end of different lessons, but now I can see how you can use it in PBL. But it's really fun because they think of Twitter, they write a quick short summary that describes their takeaway from what they have been working on. Then they sketch it, they put a hashtag to it, and then they retweet one of their friends' tweets.
Yes, they love it. And again, like most of the things I think I've learned thanks to you, Steph. And So I'm super thankful.
Yeah, it's such a great community of just people and how we're able to share all of these different resources and ideas. And what's cool is like, I wasn't even thinking of this tweet as a reflection for PBL. I'm like, oh, it's just one day lesson. No, you can use it for PBL.
No,
It shows
yeah.
that. And then, oh, I love her plot twist one. Well, her books with the plot twist.
That's an amazing student. We do book snaps. So that's a tutorial we are giving in the resources. But basically, what they need to do is take a screenshot of, the part that has surprised them, inspired them, or I don't know, something like they are doing research on, and it's like, oh, I find this really interesting. So they screenshot that and they add a short paragraph or a few sentences describing what made them or why it made them feel that way, or what, I don't know, why they find it interesting. They just share their reaction to it, and then they decorate it like with emojis or stickers, also connected to their thoughts. So this is like when we were reading A Long Walk to Water, and at the end, my student was shocked. I don't want to spoil the ending, but she was really shocked. So it was like plot twist, and so she came up with her reflection and her book snap. They loved doing them. They kept, like, every time we read, they were like, can we do a book snap? So I think it's a really good way for them to show their learning, reflect on their learning, and also, they are engaged, they like it.
Yeah, for sure. It can be a really fun activity for your students to do. And book snaps are just fun with all the fun little stickers and decorations.
Yes.
And
this one was done on Canva. Again, as I said, I
yeah.
tell them slides, but they like Canva.
Which is amazing.
I love them. Yes, they are amazing.
And then this 3-2-1 reflection.
Yes. Okay, that is, 3 interesting things or 3 surprising facts about your learning, 2 questions you might still have, and 1 muddy point, what you still find a bit difficult to understand. And again, boys and toys, they get to share what they think and choose how they share their thinking. Video, writing, poster, Canva.
And I love the 1 muddy point. Like, what is
Yes.
still muddy? Like, what is still going on that as a coach, I use this reflection with my teachers. So like, okay, what's 3 good things that you've learned today? What's 2 questions that you might have? And what's that 1 muddy point? So even outside of PBL, you can still use these resources, which is fantastic.
Yes. More resources.
I know, right? And so now
Yes.
we're going into the revision stage. And again, this is where feedback comes into play again. And it's really important for students to be able to accept that feedback and also provide that feedback. So with the revision piece, you might have students present like their project, and then they kind of go over what they like, what they wonder, the what ifs, what have they considered, and what did they notice. You can also do tag feedback. So Greta will talk more about the tag feedback that she uses.
Yeah, as Steph was mentioning a while ago, it's important to teach our kids how to give feedback. So tag is a protocol we have. I learned this during my EST certification. We used it while we were students, and I thought, like, I need this in my class. It teaches them, it's a protocol that teaches them how to give feedback. So T stands for, okay, tell your classmate something that you liked about their work. A, ask your classmate a question. So this helps, when they are receiving their feedback, it helps them think too. And then G, give your classmate an idea or a suggestion. Since I teach English and it's not easy for my students that are Spanish speakers to give feedback, I prepared like some sentence starters or prompts. So I don't know, Steph, if you can scroll a little bit.
Yeah.
Like 3, 4, 5. So T says something, tell something you liked, ask us. So they have different sentence starters. We have these embedded in our LMS, so they can go back to it. at the beginning, they were like, no, I want to say excellent, good job. It's like, no. And it's funny because now whenever they finish something and they have some time left, can I do tag? So they keep giving feedback to their classmates. They really have, I like how they have developed their giving feedback skills. I don't know if you say it that way, but um, they are more meaningful and they think really well what they do, and this helps, you know, develop empathy in our classroom. We are modeling their digital citizenship skills, so I think it's super important, and it gives them, you know, a guide, because as Steph said, it's not easy. It's not even easy for us adults. So
yeah, I love using the tag feedback, and I love sentence starters because those really do help students frame the discussion and frame the feedback to that other student. And then another thing that I've kind of used is just reminding students and doing like a quick mini lesson on giving feedback and talking about how you start with the positives. So you might provide something that you really liked about their project and using that feedback sandwich. So what's something you liked, improvement, and then what do you like again? That way there's two positives and like one negative. And then just telling the students to listen and really think about what is that person saying. And yes, you guys have a similar goal around that project. And then making it personal. Again, not this is excellent. Yeah, everybody's excellent, right? So
thumbs up.
really encouraging the kids to use I statements instead of like everyone thinks your project was awful. Like, no, only you think that, and just kind of going over with the students, like use I and not everybody. Don't generalize it. And then just kind of going over with the students, like really talking about what is it that you weren't sure about, or what was it that went over and above. And then just being detailed about that feedback. And so what is something that you could share that, hey, this is funny, but what part of it doesn't need to be, or what part of it is funny? Not just it's funny. Like what exactly part are you talking about? And then being just helpful could be kind of like just again talking about their project and thinking about where is it that you can offer that improvement, what part of their project, and that just makes somebody feel like you really took the time to review their work. You really took the time to do that when you make it that personal and when you're very detailed about improvements. And then suggestions. So again, talking with students about what suggestions you might have with them and telling them that one way to do it is through questioning. Just asking, like, why did you put that part in here at this point? Why did you do this? Why did that research say this? So asking them questions can help with that. And then asking the students also, like, what is their goal to achieve at the end of this? And really bringing them back to that focus. So this I kind of, again, just do as a mini lesson with students about just giving feedback to others in the classroom. And finally, that public product. Again, we like to use choice boards with this because then it allows that student voice and choice again. And what we have created here is this is kind of a teacher board. I would not give this out to students. It has too many choices. Students will be overloaded in choices if you send this out to them, and they probably won't get their project done because they're just going to stare at this product choice board. So this is more for teachers. And what I would do is, based on all of these different ideas, create like 3 choices for students to pick from. And they can always come up to you and have like an approval for something else if they wanted to. But really just kind of keeping it to 3. So are you going to record a video, sketchnote it, or are you going to create like a Google slide presentation to show that end result, that product, or that presentation, or whatever your goal is for that project? But again, here's just some ideas. Maybe they create a YouTube, a Kahoot game. Maybe they come up with some type of chat boards, a slideshow, Amazon review. Students can come up with all different kinds of products, and this slide is always being updated with different ideas as I kind of think of them, or as I find them, or as people share. And so again, teachers will probably want to use this to help them create a smaller board for their students. Which brings us to rubrics. So we're almost there, right? Like the students
Yes.
have completed those projects, they're presenting them. And so now you're ready to kind of take a look at these different rubrics for students to complete. I have found that rubrics are probably the easiest way when it comes to project-based learning to give feedback. And giving the students a rubric at the beginning can be helpful as well, so they know the expectation.
Yes, and then
Yeah, go ahead.
no, I was saying that it's super important. I think sharing them at the beginning so they know what we are expecting, and they also set their goals once they see the rubric. Um, Again, when we, for example, evaluate using rubrics, glows and growth are also there. We give them the rubric at the beginning. We also use images so they can see like the difference between what it exceeds expectation, non-observable. I think, combining text with images helps them a lot to understand, especially when it comes, to feedback and make expectations clear. So usually I give them back their feedback on the rubric, but they also have a copy for them. And what I ask them as they reflect on my feedback, I want them to reflect on their learning. So they highlight in the rubric what they feel have been their glows and their growths too. So they highlight in green. We came up on Easty as I was sharing this with Steph that maybe they could use stickers. So I could add some light bulbs and little plants, and they could drag and drop them to the rubric. But I think it's super important because it also keeps, the whole thing we work throughout the year on reflection going. And
yeah, I definitely agree with those different expectations. It's super important for students, and to have that rubric. And I just love the glows and grows because students can see their growth, and that will help them create that growth mindset.
yes.
Which now brings us to some final examples. So this slide deck right here just has some examples of different PBL projects that have been completed throughout different teachers and throughout different subjects. So one that I like to share is this Genius Hour one, where if students finish a project early, it's kind of like a can-do option, and they move their little light bulb around and they complete all of these different activities to kind of grow their knowledge. And they kind of talk about what they're passionate about. They do brainstorming tips, and it takes them through kind of that PBL process when it comes to Genius Hour with different students.
I love Genius Hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite projects.
I know, right? It's such a good one. And then this was a math teacher that did a PBL project last year. And she was able to, again, she created those options for the students for what they could create. But it was a lot of fun, and the students were very invested because it was real life problems that they were trying to solve.
It makes such a difference when it's real life problems. Kids get a lot more engaged and they find it like more authentic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we cannot wait to see your examples once you get going with PBL this school year or whenever you're watching this recording. And we cannot wait to see, and please share. We want to hear how you're using PBL in your classroom. So please share anything that you're doing because it just brightens our day.
Yes, and it also gives us ideas to keep on creating.
Yeah, for sure. And we just grow off of each other's ideas, which is really fun to do. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Make sure you fill out that Google form to receive the resources, and we will talk with you guys next time.
Yes.